Hey, this is Sully, and welcome to Sully Speaks. Today we have an awesome video for you guys. I'm going to be interviewing Richard Price, who is a former football player. He has his MBA in business marketing. He also has his MPA in, business public administration. I never heard that, so I guess we're going to learn what that is. And also, he works currently at a high school as a counselor for ninth and 12th graders, guiding them through their future. He also owns his own business called Breaking Through Leadership and is an awesome leadership and mentoring program. So let's get into it.
Yep.
Recording. Okay, just let me do a quick intro. Hey, this is Sully with Sully Speaks. I'm interviewing Rich Price, and I'm going to let you take the reins. Who are you, and why, and what do you do?
First of all, thank you for allowing me to be part of this process. That's a very important question. I think a question that a lot of times we fail to answer correctly. Who am I? I am a child of God. I am a person who's constantly trying to figure out what my calling is and to use my calling and my gifts and talents to bless other people. On top of that, my name happens to be Rich Price. And, um, my niche is focused on helping to develop young people, helping to develop their self leadership skills and helping them to understand why dreaming is so important, because I believe that the dream is something that is given to you upon your birth, but it's your responsibility as it's our responsibility as parents and also as the individual to nourish and water those dreams. So, my task right now is to simply help partner up with families and to help develop self leadership skills and to help young people understand that their dreams, the dream that was given to them, is not by mistake, but it's going to take work. And my task is to make sure that we can have those dreams become, their reality.
Okay, it's a good intro. So, you mentioned that you're a child of God, and you noticed that I'm Muslim. We may not take that same path, but you have a product. You teach people leadership skills, and I personally use your product for my children. I have four boys, and all four of my boys are in your program, and they love it. Well, let's be honest. Two of them love it. The other are two are like, "Do I have to do this?" But we still force them to do it because it's a benefit.
Yeah.
Um, but from what we get from you, it's not anything religious. Well, I don't know how to. It's not to say it's not religious, because to me, finding your dream and pursuing your calling is a requirement of any. It should be a requirement of religion. You know what I mean? But it's not a I'm Christian or I'm Muslim thing. It's just about you see youth and you help the youth, and that's what I'm getting. So could you further explain how, I guess, the religious aspect of things, because your bio talks about how you are currently Christian and your passion is the gospel, but I don't get that. And not that I say you don't, you're not Christian in who you are, but is you don't push it on anyone else.
Right. Well, first of all, let me put some background to it. I spent the first 20 plus years not believing in anything. Uh, so just imagine that, just believing in what you see and what you hear. Uh, it's pretty dangerous. It's a pretty
Mm-hmm.
dangerous point in your life. And I think that's why a lot of our youth, a lot of our young boys and girls grow up and they're constantly maybe being cycled through the system because they don't believe in anything. And if I'm growing up in an environment where I'm in a toxic environment where there's violence and a lack of leadership, and if I don't believe anything, or if I'm just a product of my environment, then I'm gonna produce what I've grown up in. So the
Mm-hmm.
first 20 plus years, I didn't really believe, I didn't know what to believe in, you know. So, that alone is an indication that there's some work to do. Now, I grew up in a I grew up when my father was living with us. He was Muslim. He was part of the Nation of Islam. So there was some structure. It was pretty extreme, but I think that I took that structure and his discipline, and I used that to remain out of the streets to prevent, being part of gangs and doing, wayward things that young people do. So I do have a strong understanding of Islam. Um, and I don't want to debate this philosophy, but I think it's a great um, religion that really allows young men and women to take a lot of pride and ownership. Number one, of uh, truly who we are. Um, so I do have a strong understanding of the Islamic understanding. Right now, the path that I'm walking has been Christianity's since I've been 36. And I think what's cool about all of that is that it allows me to be collective. I can relate to people who don't believe in anything. I can relate to people who, only look at things from a Islamic perspective. I can relate to those who have a Christian perspective. So it's not necessarily a that we're isolating anyone. When I talk to people, I can talk to anybody that falls within those three realms because I've done it, I've lived it, and I appreciate all three of them because they do bring significance and value to your life if you're willing to listen. And I'm not talking about only listening with your ears, but listening with your heart. So it's a beautiful collection. It's a beautiful experience for me. But to be honest with you, most of my experience has been coming up from a person in the streets who didn't believe much in anything. Uh, so I can honestly say those are probably who I connect with the most because I can share my story. I can share my testimony from that perspective, from an Islamic perspective, and also from a Christianity perspective. And you know what? What they say, you only can feed a baby, um, you know, if their mouth is open. So I don't force anything down anybody's throat. I meet people on their terms. I meet them where they are, and if they accept it, they accept it. If not, it's all good.
Okay. Could you give me, let's talk about your background. Let's talk about how you grew up, what your quote unquote experience of the streets were, and get a bit further in the future on how college was and high school was and stuff.
Yeah, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and my father. I grew up in the projects. It was called King Kennedy, and it was just the housing projects. My father was around up until I was maybe 6 or 7. But I grew up with all my mother and all her sisters. So although he left, or you know the story was that he abandoned us, we had such a strong community of women who were strong and who, boy, they could raise both, boys and girls. So my mom and her 3 sisters, that was my example. Those were the strong men in my life, you know, unfortunately.
Like,
And
do you feel like sometimes black women can be too strong or too abrasive and overdo overdo it or underdo it sometimes? Like, or do what is your opinion on black women and raising black boys in a long term effects?
I I don't think you can really overdo it or underdo it. I think you do what you understand, what you're comfortable doing, and that's why I think it's really we got to be really careful about um, telling people how to parent their children,
Mhm.
because most of us are doing only what we know how to do or what we feel comfortable doing. And let's be real, our children are living and growing up in a different environment than what we how we grew up.
Yeah.
I mean, let's think about it. The one dynamic thing that they have that we don't have is they have the force and the might of social media.
Mm.
What a competitive force to raise kids, because at some point we'll all experience this. Our children will put the earmuffs on and stop listening to us, and they'll choose to take their concerns to social media. And that's really a hard thing to compete with when you don't know who your children are speaking with or getting confirmation from on social media. So I don't think when it comes to black women, I think I think black women and parents of color in general, we're doing what we are comfortable doing, which is kind of dangerous. We're doing what we think is right. I think the only thing that I would say is this: the biggest problem with that is this. What I'm seeing in the school systems that I work with and the kids that I'm raising, what's dangerous is this: our kids are growing so much faster than our ability to parent them. A lot of times, we're raising our children based on how we remember them. So we have 16-year-old children, but we're raising them based on the feel good moments when they used to be 10. They're trying to grow their wings and saying, Mama, let me grow. But we're treating them like a 10-year-old when they're 16-year-old. And then you wonder where the estrangement comes from because they're trying to grow. They're trying to grow. And we're saying, oh, no, I want to hold on to it. And they're saying, let me grow. Let me grow up. But we won't let them grow up because we remember them as the sweet 10-year-old. But they're 16 now. And then they say, oh, you don't understand me. And then they stop talking to us. And then when they stop talking to their parents, the question is now who are they talking to? Usually other unqualified people. That's the only danger of raising children these days is that as parents, we are raising them based on when it was the good times, before they became controversial, when they were 10 and sweet, when they were 7. So we're behind. We're really behind. If you're a parent, if you can really just take inventory of your parenting skills, you have to grow with your children. It can't be a dominant it's my way or the highway. You have to grow with them because they're asking for your help in most ways. And oftentimes when we shut them down or when we are just always fixing their problems, they're not interested in that. They're basically saying, grow with me.
Mm, yeah. So do you feel like having a single mom, like the long-term effects of having a single mom or growing up without a father, what were some of the long-term effects of your life? Like, did it make you stay on a good path? Because your mom tried her best. She did what she could with the tools she had. So,
Yeah.
what was the ill effects of her raising you as opposed to you feel like your father raising you?
Well, I want to make sure we get this clear. I think sometimes what you have is what you have. If you got two great parents, wow, that's awesome. You got two different perspectives. Hopefully, one unifying. When they work together, you got one message. But if you don't, I think moms can do a great job raising their children by themselves. However, the presence of a father or a good role model or leadership in the house is, that's very, very important. I would say the ill effect is that I didn't for a while. I forgot I had a father
Hmm.
because I grew up around all women. My mom and her sisters. That's all I was ever around. Most of my cousins were all female.
Hmm.
So I might have had maybe two, boy cousins. Everybody I grew up around was women. You know, so there was a softness always in the environment that I grew up in. But when it came to the the, the women in my life, they were really hardcore women. They were really hardcore on the exterior, and I got it. They really taught us how to. They taught me how to be. Um, I don't want to say be a man. They taught they taught me about the roughness of life and being a black boy. And oftentimes growing up in the projects or the inner city, it was you stand up for yourself, you don't back down. They were really, really hardcore about that. But there was also like this really, really soft side, this really, really soft side that I got to see at night when it was time to relax. You know, the little, sometimes the crying, that touched my heart. So I got to see a duplicity of these hardcore women, but then these women who were just tired of just raising kids by themselves. So the ill effect is that you just have women, you have a women's perspective coming at you all the time.
Mm.
And you don't get to see or witness the male's perspective. So you're dominated by this woman's perspective, and it really takes over your perspective on how you see females or other women.
How do you see females? Is it a negative thing? Is it a positive thing?
Well, during the time that I was growing up, because these were hurting women.
Mm.
I'm not saying everything that came out of their mouth was awesome. Probably most of the stuff that came out of their mouth was fairly negative. And after a while, just like our kids, I put my earmuffs on. I didn't want to hear it. So after about 10 to 15 years of just and I would say complaining, but just expressing probably their hurt in a different way. I just saw. I was thinking to myself, wow, females or women, it sounds like a very difficult uh, chess match, complications. So naturally, my perspective is, how do I find a way to conquer or dominate that type of attitude when it comes to women?
Mm.
What a poor foundation to have as a boy, not to grow and understand them, how to dominate them, how to figure them out. Because again, but this is just hardcore women who have been hurt, and I've been hearing the complaints and the struggles, and so my perspective was um, not how do I control, how do I dominate, how do I get what I want, how do I figure them out, and then once I figure them out, move on.
That's profound.
It is, and it's sad because most of my training, and I don't think it was done intentionally. Most of my training came from my mom and all of her sisters.
But
Uh, but,
is it crazy? So I have a daughter. You met my daughter.
mhm,
I'm not, just because she's mixed or whatever, I'm gonna say a statement and everybody's gonna be like, I'm not raising a strong black female. And I say this because I'm not what a typical strong black female is. And when I say strong black female, I'm talking about overly aggressive, um, thinks she needs to run the household. My intention is to never raise that kind of girl because I was surrounded by those kind of females, and I seen the end result. I seen that they're still alone. I
mhm,
see that they're still angry, even till this day. And I see the way they view me. They view me as weak because I have a partnership with my husband. And what you said was so profound because I always tell myself this, like my mom is like, you need to be more harder on your girl. You need to tell her this is how it's going to be. I'm like, no, because when she gets married, she's going to know her position.
yeah,
I'm not raising a strong black female.
yeah. It's funny that you say that because um, all my aunts, they're still alive. They're older now, but all of them are single.
Mm.
They're all single. My mom's single. And I had this conversation with my mom most recently. She's 63, maybe. And I asked her, I was like, well, you're not young, super young anymore. I was like, don't you want to like have a partner who can take care of you now that you're settling down? And she said something that was profound. She said, no. She's like, no. She's like, I don't want to, I don't want to have anybody bossing me around and telling me what to do. I'm used to doing me.
Mm.
That's pretty selfish.
Mm.
That's pretty selfish when you think about that. She's so, and again, she's so used to being a dominant personality where even at 63 years of age, even though her health is slowly declining and she knows she needs help, she's not willing to compromise that that part of her that she knows that she needs to go into partnership or harmonious partnership with someone else, another man, because she still hold the value of being strong and dominant, probably to her deathbed. And that right there is that's an uncompromising value. that she refused to give up. And I think all my aunts refused to give up. And although they probably feel like they don't need a man now, um, I mean, it's hard to believe at 63 and some of them are 70 that having a partner who can help out wouldn't be valuable.
Yeah.
You know, that's and you don't have to. I think what's most important right now is raising a kid, a young person who understands their value,
But
who understands.
not just female, but men
Right,
too.
right,
Raising
right.
men too. Because from from what I'm seeing in our communities, the the kids are like they're dying inside. And when I say like I feel like even with the Muslim marriage, the Christian marriages, you see the destruction of not like crying right now, but you see the destruction of it because people aren't playing their roles and the importance of playing your role. Showing, I show my daughter, you are supposed to be a female, and I literally allow my husband to be the man of the house. And you met my husband, regardless of his color and stuff like that, because I get a lot of issues with a few people in my family because he's, of a different color. He's Caucasian. Oh, you're allowing him to do this, that, and the other, and you get that backlash. But I allow a man to be a man, and that's all we had to do. And I feel like it's a simple equation for success, but our emotions like don't allow us to go past that simple equation. Like I can't. Is 1 + 1 = 2, but we, as black females and black males, we're like, oh no, we need to go to 5. Why can't we just be 2?
Well, I think I think what we're really caught on is the opinion of others.
Yeah.
Uh, I think the one thing that really has given me an opportunity just to live my life is um, I'm not going to say that I don't care what other people think because that's not true. I do. However, I don't meditate on that.
Mm.
You know what? I'm going to live my life the best way that I know how. You know what? And if I'm going to make some mistakes, I don't need the approval of my family members based on who I marry, based on what field I go into, because I one thing I've understood early is that if I'm gonna do anything, I'm gonna do it because I'm 100% committed to it. That's my commitment level. And if I have to worry about the approval of my mom or my sister or my brother or the black community, come on, come on. The one thing that I do know is love is love.
Yeah. How did you go about choosing your wife? What was some of the qualities? Because I know we're talking about our youth, but to me, if you don't have a strong foundation, which is the marriage, then and then the children are just going to fall apart. So the wife and the husband are important. So before someone goes into a relationship, whatever, how do you, how did you, after going through all of what you went through, having, hot childhood trauma, because what you went through, it was trauma and we don't recognize it. So having childhood trauma,
It
having,
still shows up. It still shows up. I mean, 45 years, but it shows up. I can remember. I can recall childhood trauma. I can recall men in my community how they would physically dominate and beat their women. I can recall how my father when he was around. It wasn't abnormal for him to have 2 and 3 girlfriends. Like
yeah.
that's the foundation. Like
But
this is the,
but
this
when
is the
you
poor
chose your wife,
leadership.
when you chose your wife, after you've seen all that, um, why did you choose her?
Well, I because I screwed up because I know I've severed a lot of relationships
Mm.
based on the old philosophy of conquer and trying to conquer somebody, especially women. Um, it just get to a point where feeding your flesh and wanting only what you want, it's not satisfying anymore. And
Mm.
I had done that like a quarter of my life. And I can honestly say I love my mom. I think my mom and my aunts did the best job that they could do.
Yeah.
My mom, well, we grew up in the street. We grew up in the projects. Okay. They didn't always make good decisions. I trusted my mom and I trusted my aunts, but I never trusted anybody with 100%.
Yeah.
And the reason I wound up with my wife is that from the very beginning, like we're athletes. We're athletes, college athletes. So we were very competitive. That was a strong attraction. But I think the one thing that kind of really sealed the deal is that like I trusted her. Like I never trusted anybody, especially any other a woman, with everything that I have. Like I trust her to make the best decisions. She's a very honest person.
Mm.
She's a kind person. She's and this is like for me, it's still a novelty. I like seriously, I trust her with my life. I trust her with my life. And that was the main reason because we're similar, but we're really different.
Yeah.
She's a country girl and I'm a project boy.
Okay, yeah. That's pretty different.
It's really different. It really is different. So some of our conversations even to this day, I'm like, no, and we were just joking about this because we got 4 kids and we got 2 adopted kids, well foster kids, and we were just talking about we we were talking about what's this the show Wizard of Oz,
Uh-huh.
and I said, hey, you ever seen the Black Wizard of Oz, the Oz? And she was like, no, what's that? And I was like, see, that's almost a turn for divorce. You don't even know what the Oz is.
It's the
And we was just joking about it. It's like
Mm.
even certain Michael Jackson songs, she doesn't know it. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
So is she not African American?
No, she's white.
Okay. So with that dynamic, okay, so we can relate on that. Okay, so
Oh, you can definitely relate on that. And I used to catch a lot of
like for it.
flag for it, but I was paying
I
attention.
think
I was looking for it. I was paying attention to it. And I was like, now, man, I don't, I can't afford to, I can't afford to live my life based on you
mm,
keeping it real, dude. Listen. If you only knew how many people I've screwed over when it came to relationships with women, like whatever I got coming to me, I'd probably deserve it. I got blessing and I got an opportunity to. I landed a winner because if it was retribution or revenge, I would have darts all in me.
mm.
So when love came, it came hard, and it's funny because
Honestly, like legit with your past relationships, it takes two to tango. Yes,
yeah,
you did people dirt, but as a woman, as a Muslim, I don't date. I feel like you go into a relationship with the intention of marriage, but some women they go into with the relationship with whatever intention they do, but you it everybody screwed up in a relationship. Like I was married twice before, and I will never sit there and blame my ex husband on the ending of the relationship because both of us did stuff.
yeah.
So the people you screwed over, they screwed themselves over too. Both of us screwed each other over.
I pretty much yeah. They like I said, it takes 2 to tango, but I definitely was the hammer. I wasn't the nail. I was the hammer. But I
Oh,
was really young. I was really young, and I was having a lot of success. I was having a lot of
I tried
success
to
in
give you
my
some
life.
room.
So I would definitely say, and this might be leading us to another conversation, but I was having a lot of success as a football player, and
Hmm.
I was getting a lot of accolades, and I was always in performance mode, and I didn't know how to separate myself. Like football, it was more than football on the field. It was also I was, in the classroom, in my social life. So I was always in performance mode, and I was always getting praise, and if I didn't get enough praise, then I didn't need you,
Mm.
you know, and that's the trap. But this is a very, very dangerous trap that the athletes go through, when they are receiving a lot of success.
Can you give me a quick run through because I know your story, so it's like we're having a conversation. But could you give me a quick run through of all of what you've done so that people can have a better understanding and the content of all of this, because it has to make sense.
Yeah. So just, try to be brief. I didn't start playing football. I used to play football in my neighborhood. So I was always one of the bigger kids, one of the youngest kids, but one of the bigger kids. So I would always, anything that I ever played, whether it was basketball, football, I played with like 18, 19-year-old guys when I was like 14, because I was their size, you know. So everybody thought I was older. So I was learning early about the difference in speed and strength, you know, and I was getting dominated. So, when high school actually started, in the ninth grade, I was bigger and stronger than everybody, but I had been playing with people who were older. So I was, you know, promoted to varsity because number one, they didn't really know who I was other than the fact that I was big and fast.
Mhm.
And it was a shock because I was really young. I didn't really know anything, and I got immersed into this in football. See, I played football. See, there's one difference between playing football in the projects, and then you go and put equipment on, and then you actually run into each other. And you got to know plays. Like
Mhm.
what? So I had my first experience. Like, wow, this equipment is heavy. Then you had to know all these plays, and I couldn't get any of the plays right, but I was still somehow able to compete and do really well. And then my coaches would always come and talk to me about how good of an athlete I was and how they wanted me to do all these things. And to me, this was the first positive experience that I've had with men though.
Mhm.
Wow,
Really?
he thinks this much of me. Wow, this is crazy.
Really?
I thought he must want something from me, you know. So my attitude changed because I'm like, okay, he wants something from me. I don't know really what it is. So I started to kind of like push back. But
Mm.
it felt good because I was actually good at something. Because one thing that I struggled with in school was academics. Like I couldn't figure it out, and when it came to grades. Like all my relatives, my cousins, and my brothers and sisters here they're getting A's and B's, and I can barely get a C.
Mhm.
So I had already had this inferior complex academically about myself. But I knew football, it was the one thing that I was able to do better than anybody in my family, better than my friends.
Mhm.
So, I started playing high school football, and every year I kept getting better and better. Then I would have these coaches come to like talk to me from these schools. And like to me, it still didn't make sense. I'm like, wow, why are these white coaches coming to see me to talk to me about football? And it sounded like the same stuff. We want you to come, you can do this and that. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to go to school when I can barely pass high school? And they were like, no, no, we can figure that out for you.
Mm.
And I started thinking to myself, like, something's really weird about this relationship. And my coach started telling me, like, you mean you can go to school? Like these people will actually pay for you to go to school if you play football for them. And I was like, for real? Like to me, it still didn't register. And
Mhm.
then my 11th grade year, then I started putting it all together. And I was like, I was getting better. I was making all these conferences. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is my ticket out of these projects. Like
Mm.
I can actually play football for somebody, do something that I'm really good at, and I can actually get a degree. But I was scared because I was still barely getting D's and C's. But my coaches kept me eligible, just
Mm.
like most coaches will keep their athletes eligible if they're good enough. So although I was excelling on the field, internally I was absolutely frightened because I knew if I go to college, that means that I'm gonna have to actually be held accountable.
Yes.
So here it is. I'm in my 12th grade year. I'm getting out, and so I'm having all these scholarships and all these offers, and everybody's so excited for me. Like I got my whole community rooting me. I'm excited. I am just so afraid. They don't even know because I'm like, I don't want to let them down, but I also know that I can get out of this. I can get away from these projects. So just like any kid who doesn't understand what they have in front of them, um, I found myself in a very, very uncomfortable situation where I was hanging out with friends. At midnight we were coming from a party, and being around the wrong people at the wrong time can be devastating.
Mhm.
And I was just walking home, and sure enough, police just pulled us over, and just arrested everybody,
Mhm.
and they just put charges on everybody. Something happened, in our community where 4 guys had robbed in a convenience store.
And it so happened before y'all.
And it happened to be 4 of us. And they didn't even care. That was my first time having issues with the criminal justice system. And to me, it just was like a movie. It didn't make sense. And it scared me half to death because I didn't have that's the first time I wanted my daddy.
Mm.
And I didn't have any man to come to my rescue. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, this is what it's like. This is what it's like to be Black. Because up until this point, I hadn't really experienced anything like this.
But
You
why
know?
is Black equated to, why do you equate Black to police?
Well, because I wouldn't say unfair to them. So if we growing up in the projects, first of all, they said, you know, you're in a high crime area. Well, guess what? The whole East Side is a high crime area.
Yeah.
And when you pulled us over, not one time did you treat us kindly. You just ripped us doors on the ground and pretty much ripped our clothes, and treated us like animals.
Mm.
So it was the unfair treatment of other adults who had police uniforms on, who were actually, they were both Black and white cops, you know? And at that time, I felt like, where's my protection?
But do
And
you feel, my question is, we'll continue with your story, but do you feel at that point that because of the decisions of a lot of the Black Americans in that community, because a lot of them probably sold drugs, a lot of them probably
yeah,
gang banged, it was the decision of a lot of the men in the African American community that made it harder for you.
well, yeah, well, all my friends
If
sold
I'm a cop,
drugs.
if I'm a cop and I'm like, here we go again, you you as a person, as a human being, are automatically going to categorize all Black men, because if you're not seeing, if all you're seeing is negativity, 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 and then the one person that just that one person, you want me to treat you different. Not
Yeah,
that anyone deserves it, it's
right.
wrong, but as a human being, we always do that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And like and my friends, even though they all sold drugs, I didn't. But
Mm,
these were my childhood friends, and it was like, as this is why it's so dangerous. Our kids don't understand how to separate themselves from what's good and what's bad for them. So I grew up with these guys ever since we were like 6 years old. We're 16, 17 years old. I know they're selling drugs. They don't have fathers. They don't have money. We know what it's like to be broke and wear shoes for almost a year and a half. So I knew that brought up upon a different element of danger, but these are my friends. So why would those cops see me any different than those 3 guys?
yeah.
So it was still a poor decision, but this is all I knew. This is why when we are trying to raise our children, and even though as parents we can see around the corner and we can say, watch out for that, they
Yeah.
don't understand because this is all about them feeling connected emotionally. And guess what's going on right now? COVID-19 and all this other nonsense have forced us to live in this human bubble. And our kids feel isolated because one thing that they covet more than their family is their friendships with other people.
Sometimes friendships over family.
It is. So just to make sure so here it is. I'm out of high school. And I took a year and a half off because a lot of things happened. I was afraid to, kind of be in the public now. So I took a lot of time off. Well, you know, college football is like a big business. They're not going to wait for you. There's always somebody next year coming.
Yeah.
So I took a year and a half off. I was really torn up still emotionally inside, but I still had, you know, schools calling me.
Hmm.
I think the one conversation I'll never forget is I had this coach from a community college call me, and he's like, "Listen, your grades, it's not going to get it." He's like, "But if you give us a chance, we'll help you rebuild." And it was one of the most organic conversations I've had because all the other conversations I had was about how much fun it's going to be at these schools and we're going to win national championships. And it was like that was cool, that was nice icing on the surface, but there's
Yeah.
nothing like having an organic conversation from a man who feel like this guy can be my surrogate father, and that's what it was. So I took a different route. I went to a community college. I learned how to I learned about commitment and how to really read and study. So for 2 years of my life, I went to school in Minnesota, I was still playing football. I was at a junior college, and I learned how to get my grades up. I learned how to communicate and connect with people. I learned how to be a leader on the field. And those 2 years really set me up for my time at University of Minnesota, where I really excelled, and I
Awesome.
started getting national spotlight. And my chances, every year for about 2.5 years, I was just breaking records. And although things didn't work out for me as far as getting drafted, I still was able to go undrafted, and for 3 to 4 years, trying to break on an NFL squad. I did my fourth year, my fourth year, my fourth year after being told no, that you're not good enough. Just imagine that, being crushed every year for 4 years. You're not good enough when this is all you've ever done. I finally had a breakthrough.
Mm,
And for those who don't know, when you have that breakthrough and you're now competing at the highest level,
mm,
and now only position that I had was on the practice squad. Oh, well, the practice squad is almost like the Navy SEALs. Don't nobody know who you are. You're getting paid, but you never really you never get to play on the field. You basically practicing and showing your team, the other teams, how they run their program. So you're kind of like a punching dummy. But it was the greatest time of my life. But I still found the way to blow it because I wanted more. I wanted more. So my success that I've had started to crumble because I had a poor attitude.
yeah.
And after about 2 years, my behavior was toxic on the teams where I was getting suspended and kicked off.
Mm. You know what? Just to interrupt, I say that this to someone else, and this is not just from what I'm noticing about a lot of black men who have a certain chip on their shoulder. It's like a source of instant gratification that they want,
Mhm.
and a lot of drug dealers, a lot of people who want their fast money, um, they tend to have that same I want it now and I'm not willing to work for it. And there's a sense of instant gratification that you want, and that you have to understand if you work for it and you take your time and you're patient, you can get it. But I want that baby, I want that baby now. I don't want to have to marry you. I want that money now. So I'm gonna put everything at rest and I'm gonna go sell those drugs. So you want those, you're making horrible decisions, and I want that money now so I don't have to go to school. So you're making all these horrible decisions, and then overall is affecting the community because a lot of men, especially black men, and I'm not trying to bash black men. I'm doing this because I love my people. But a lot of black men are making these horrible decisions and not realizing them.
Well, what they're doing is they're repeating what their father's done to them.
Mm, yeah.
Just think about it. I mean, I think about my father. My father didn't graduate high school. My father left in the 10th grade and took care of his brothers and sisters. His mother was a streetwalker.
Mm,
So when I think about the gravity of his life,
mm,
it was stunted early. His leadership was stunted early. He was a street guy. He was a he was a real boss street guy,
mm,
and that's all he was. He so what he knew is what he uh, reproduced, even when having children with 5, 6 other different women. So being a man was probably that's what being a man was, having children. I guess, and he never stuck around for any of us. So I realized a long time ago that as much as my mom tried to put that wedge between me and my father, I don't know. He must have done a really good job early because I never hated him. I never
mm,
blamed him for anything. But when I became older, I started to realize that why do we do what we do? Only reason we do what we do is because that's all we know how to do. We've never been taught. No one is, a lot of times we're not taught people are not redirecting us to do stuff that we should do. And when it came to my father, he didn't have a father. He was, trying to teach his younger brothers and sisters how to grow up. His mother was a prostitute. She wasn't there for him. It's like, so here we have young men having children, and they don't even know how to be a father. They don't even know how to be accountable to themselves. And that's
mm.
what we're seeing all the time. We have young people just having babies. They have no clue what it's like to be held accountable, to make sacrifice. And this is the hell that we have right now when we have young people who are quick to strike out and against their own people the own people that they call their parents. And it's sad, but just think about the background. Only if you knew the pain of your mother and father. You don't really know their story
But
because
then
they only tell you so much.
why don't we tell them? Why? I know that sounds horrible, but I talk to my boys, and I'm not saying I tell them all the gory details, or they're 5 years old and I'm telling them all the stuff, but I talk to them and I let them know. Like, even the boys that are not my husband's biologically, I let them know what kind of transpired in the relationship and why we're not together. And I let them know that it wasn't just your dad's fault. It wasn't just my fault. It just didn't work. Why are we not having these conversations with our children so that they understand?
That's a really good question. I would say there's two reasons. Number one, because we're trying to protect them. We're trying to protect them, and we're trying to make sure it's age appropriate. Now, obviously, we shouldn't be telling our kids about sexual stuff when they're 5, because they're not gonna get that anyway. But I think we're trying to protect them from stuff because we don't want them to see us outside the parental zone. And the
Mm,
reality is that reality is this. We need to be as transparent as possible with our children about what it's like to be a female, to be this, to be that. Because trust me, they're being inundated with it anyway. I think this, parents, if you get a chance to listen to this, I think the biggest mistake that you can be is to be a perfect parent. If all you're doing is you want your kids to see you as this perfect parent, what you're doing is you're losing credibility,
mm,
because yes, that's what they need, but that's not really, that's what you think they need, but they don't want that. That's why it's easier for them to go and talk to a teacher or to go talk to somebody in the community that's not their parent, because they see you as this perfect person. You're always fixing their problems. You're always, telling them how to do this and that. And now they don't even trust you with their emotions and their feelings.
yeah, yeah,
Then you wonder why they stop talking to you. And it's because, again, that's where the relationships become estranged, because now when your kids stop trusting you, it's over. It's
hmm
over. Just imagine the girls that I talk to in my office, like the stuff that they tell me, I'm thinking like, whoa, does your mother know this? No. I had this sexual experience, or this has happened. Whoa, that's too much information. Does your parents know? And they would say, I would never tell her that. Now, that breaks my heart. You don't. You ever told your mom you've been, sexually hurt in this way? No. Well, why are you telling me? Oh, Mr. Price, I feel comfortable with you.
mm, okay,
As a father, that breaks my heart.
it
I don't
does.
even have any girls, you know, but that breaks my heart, you
Mm.
know. So parents, as
If you can give us one piece of advice, I think this is a conversation that needs to be further. I think we need to have another I guess conversation about this, and to give people more information. But if you can give us one piece of advice and do a little 10-second commercial on what you do, where you work, and just
yeah,
real quick.
yeah. I would just say, parents, I would just say, listen, whether you're raising a young boy, a young girl, remember the goal is not to, we're trying to raise them to be the men and women that they need to be for someone else, whether that's for another man or woman, whether that's for a different company or whatever. I think we have to make sure that we can let go of the good times, the younger times where things were perfect. When you become a teenager, it should be complicated. There's going to be a lot of things that come along with that that's not fun. Grow with them. I'm telling you, if you don't grow with them, they're going to grow. They're going to be living in your same house with you, but they're going to grow up without you.
Mm,
And then you'll start seeing it. You'll start seeing it because the relationship is going to grow more strange and more strange. So I would just simply say, Take inventory of not only your parenting skills, but also your children. Understand where they are when they're 15, when they're 16, when they're 17 and 18,
Mm.
and meet them where they are. Even if you don't think it's cool, you got to meet them where they are. Now, for me, my work is this. I work in a high school. I do behavioral intervention with kids from ninth to 12th grade. It's awesome. I understand exactly what my skills, talents, and abilities. It's to really edify and bring and help people believe things that they don't believe about themselves. Because that's what I needed as a young person. And now I have an opportunity, and I'm blessed to do this in a high school where it's multicultural, and I'm seeing it from both sides: girls, guys, white, black, Asian, Burmese, Hispanic. And what I'm able to do is I'm able to talk with them and to connect with them in a way that they're not able to connect with their teachers.
Mm.
This is they run to me. They come see Mr. Price because they know I'm not a teacher. I guess my profession is not a teacher in that school. They see me as a trusted adult. That I keep it real with them. I talk to them. I don't try to fix their problems. That's too much work, fixing their problems. I partner up with them, and I hold them accountable. And they don't always love that, but they respect it because they come back. They
Yeah.
keep coming back.
Yeah.
And what I've decided to do, I've decided to take that even further because I can say this: being in school is very corporate. I don't know about you, but I grew up in the 80s and 90s where you could hold people accountable and you can say some pretty mean stuff to them. Can't do that these days in schools. They'll tell on you quick, and then the principal will be calling in the office, and parents will be calling you. So I decided to start this program called Breakthrough Leadership during when COVID hit. And I was thinking to myself, what's the two things that's missing that I know when I look back on my life that I know I needed? Number one, self leadership. Self leadership is huge. Self leadership is all about being able to influence yourself. Well, how do you influence yourself when you don't like yourself? When you don't like what you see? When you don't even like what you think?
Mm.
Huh. So if you don't like what you see and how you think, then you don't have the ability to influence the decisions that you need to make. What happens is you rely on other people to make the decisions for you. It's pretty dangerous.
Mm.
So this program is about self-leadership and knowing your skills, talents, and abilities. See, when you know your skills, talents, and abilities, these are freedom. These are three freedoms that if you exercise them and you know what they are, you can use them to bless your life and other people's lives. So in this program, what I'm doing is I'm trying to get young people to think about what those three things are. And then the other part of the program is all about nourishing their dreams. See, because when you are a dreamer, that means that you are energized and motivated to chase something that you don't quite see or understand, but because it's so strong, you're willing to chase it anyway. So in this program, I teach young people how to take ownership of their dreams. And every week I take them through a process and a workbook, and I show them and I give them steps on what they need to do to chase that dream. Chasing a dream is so important. Look at the people in your life who don't dream about anything. They're not motivated by anything. They're not inspired by anything, and they probably they're just accepting life. We don't want our children accepting life. We want it to be hard. We want them to have some scratches and some struggles. Chasing your dreams or pursuing your dreams gives you an opportunity to live life on your terms, not your parents' terms, not your friends' terms. And it's a beautiful program because all I'm really doing is giving what I needed as a young man. But I have a program and I have a system and I have content that has been shared and given to me that I'm just basically telling my story through that same lens. And it's just really getting young people to take um, more interest in their life
Yeah.
earlier than later. Okay. So that's really what I'm doing. And God is blessing me to connect with so many people from Michigan to California to Hawaii.
North
And
Carolina,
a lot of
Philippines.
a lot of parents, they said, listen,
So I believe in what you're doing because, like I said, I have 4 children. I have 4 boys that are doing your program currently, and we're making them do it. And I see progress and what not that they were, because we're like really into our kids, and we're like, even for the parents that are like, oh well, I'm all about my kids, I can be that person. I feel like we are not always going to be the teachers of our kids.
That's
I
right.
I signed up because my son Sully was a bit disconnected. He didn't understand. He wants to be something, but he doesn't understand what he wants to be. He knows in his heart that he has that fire, he has that passion, and Sully, and he's like, but I don't know where I want to go with it. So I'm like, I see my son, and I'm like, I need some help. And I seen your advertisement. I called you up, and immediately I felt like we connected. My husband and you connected, and Sully, we're still working on him.
Oh yeah, they're a
So
work in progress. He's a work in progress. He's a beautiful kid though.
no, he's awesome. But like I said, I highly recommend using Richard's program. I highly recommend it. I will be listing his information below, and making sure that you guys know how to get in contact with him if you're struggling with your teen. I have an 11-year-old to a 17-year-old. So 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 17-year-old in this program. So if you have those issues, boy or girl, make sure you hit him up. Let him know. He'll schedule you. He is very open. I mess up sometimes, so I can be a little flaky. He'll work with you. He'll
It
roll.
is what it is. We all mess up. That's right. We all mess up.
So, but it's a program worthwhile, and I wouldn't recommend it if I truly didn't believe in it. We will be having him back on to talk about different subjects, especially regarding parenting.
Yeah.
I want to have other parents come on to talk to him who are struggling with their teens, so we can talk live, so other parents can get in. So we'll be furthering this conversation, but right now we do have to end this because Zoom is going to kick us off.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, Richard, and all of your information will be listed below if you want to contact him. I have his website, and are we putting your number up there or no?
Yeah, that's
Oh, and your number.
it's all good. It's all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. And I guess we'll go from there.
All righty.
All right, talk to you later.
Okay.